Okay. All right. Well, welcome to our next iteration of Next Level. We're going to try this. So, Sirach and I are going to have a conversation about personal systems, um, disciplines, just being organized. I don't know, all that kind of stuff. The Next Level group all submitted questions. We kind of tried to break those down into some sort of categories, and so we're definitely not covering them in any particular order. We've combined some. But yeah, and then we're just going to kind of have a conversation and see how it goes. So, Sirach, great to be here with you. I wanted to do this with you because I know you're someone that, thinks a lot about this and has really disciplined yourself. One of my favorite out of left field moments was when you when you did the Taylor Johnson and came out with you were like the most extreme, impulsive, and not disciplined. And I was like, what did you do when you answered those questions? Because you're one of the more live by discipline people and systems that I know.
The impulses are there,
Yeah.
Evil is right there with me.
Yeah. When you try to do good.
When I try to do good, evil is right there with me. But praise be to God. No, man, that's good. I'm excited for this today too, man. The more I was looking at the questions and looking at kind of our ministry arc and kind of where we're at and where our people are at, just the questions they're asking. It's like this, it's almost like a Western 21st century question of how do I manage the inputs coming in of just technology, life, family, my faith, my hobbies, my personal life. And I think there are a lot of people that are either it's made it to a conscious level, they're overwhelmed and they're trying to make sense of it. Or I think there's a lot of people who are overwhelmed and they don't even really know it.
Yeah.
So I hope this creates space for people to engage with this. So I'm excited too, man.
Well, and I wanted to start, I like this question to start with. Someone kind of asked, when it comes to personal disciplines in the life of a disciple, what scriptures have you found helpful to point our people to? I feel like it often comes off as anecdotal life tips pulled from my experience or some other person that I know. And I do think it's helpful to start with this question because obviously we're pastors, we're ministers, we believe in God's word, but I don't necessarily think that means everything we do needs a verse. And so that was sort of where I was thinking. I was like, I definitely have some scriptures that I think about. I don't, and maybe, you can chime in too. Like I think a lot about Hebrews 12, no discipline is pleasant at the time. And he's not talking about punishment. He's talking about being disciplined. No discipline is pleasant at the time, but painful. Later on, it produces this harvest of righteousness and peace for those who've been trained by it. I'm like, yeah, that's so true in my life. It's not fun disciplining yourself on the front end, but it is really fun having a lot of peace on the back end,
Yeah, for me, the question of personal disciplines in the life of a disciple, I think even people who don't follow Jesus, I think are compelled to want to live an effective life. And I think that is a virtue. I mean, one of the fruits of the Spirit is self-control. And the manifestation of self-control is probably like a relationship with oneself. A text that stands out to me in the context of a disciple comes from 2 Peter 1, 3 through 11. And this is one that I've really been into since staff retreat when I got to share with the staff. But Peter's saying, his divine power has given us everything we need for a godly life through our knowledge of him who called us by his own glory and goodness. Through these, he has given us his very great and precious promises, so that through them you may participate in the divine nature, having escaped the corruption in this world caused by the evil desires. So in the life of a disciple, those opening two verses invite me to consider that I'm called to participate in something already happening, which takes kind of the burden off of me. Because with this conversation of personal systems, productivity, how to be organized, it can feel like there's so much pressure.
Yeah.
It can feel like I have to figure out what I need to do so that I can produce something for God. But Peter's saying, we already have everything we need, and we get to join in on what God's doing. For this reason, make every effort to add to your faith goodness, to goodness knowledge, and to knowledge self-control, and self-control perseverance, and to perseverance godliness, and godliness mutual affection, and to mutual affection love. For if you possess these qualities in increasing measure, again, if you possess these qualities and there's like a unfolding of these
Mhm.
qualities, like you engage, you participate, and there's going to be growth will happen. They'll keep you from being ineffective and unproductive
Mhm,
in your
mhm.
knowledge of our Lord Jesus Christ. For whoever does not have them is nearsighted and blind, forgetting that they have been cleansed from their past sins. Therefore, my brothers and sisters, make every effort to confirm your calling and election, for if you do these things, you'll never stumble. So this text to me encourages me because often people that are struggling with productivity systems, they're often like very nearsighted.
Mm.
Like it's like how a marathon runner is aware. Like imagine running a marathon without mile markers versus having mile markers. A marathon runner with mile markers has a sense of I'm at mile 8, I'm at mile 12. It's still a difficult marathon. You're still running a marathon, but having an awareness of where you're at is really important. And in the conversation about personal systems, productivity, there are people who are just frantically working and they know they're running the race for Christ. They know they're in it, but they have no sense of like, where am I in this journey? Because sometimes when you know where you're at, you'll have peace to stop working, to rest, to take a break, to engage. And I think the 2 Peter text is just an invitation to engage in what Christ is already doing. So that's a text that comes to mind for me, because I think Peter's encouraging like each person to figure that out for
Yeah.
themselves.
Well, and I like that because it's got this sense of God's initiative and then our kind of response to that. And I think that's, I mean, even the Hebrews 12 thing, he says, endure hardship as discipline. God is treating you as sons. That God's going to use the hard things in our life. And sometimes we get to those moments of like, I've got too much. I feel overwhelmed. It's like, yeah, I can endure that as God's discipline. But at the end, he says, so strengthen your feeble arms and weak knees. It's, that there is a response that I'm like, all right, like I understand God's doing this, so I got to get tougher and go with that perspective. And the other one that I think about a lot is just Galatians 5 and the fruit of the Spirit. I've shared this in different settings, but I think I had this aha moment in my mid 30s where I kind of realized, think about that the fruit of the Spirit at the end, he says, and self-discipline.
Yeah.
And fruit being this reproductive language, right? That the fruit of the Spirit is when God reproduces his character in me. And I realized that like I really didn't like the idea of self-discipline. And it was kind of like a necessary evil. It's like, what's the absolute minimum amount of self-discipline I can have to still get my goals accomplished? Like my goals are good, self-discipline's bad, but you gotta have a little bit. And I had this tweak in perspective of like, no, I'm trying to become like God. And so I want to become self-disciplined like God is self-disciplined, which I don't think God is super rigid and, inflexible at all. You read the scripture, he seems to constantly be able to flex to what's going on. Jesus was that way. But they also aren't just impulsive, driven by emotion at all times, unable to make plans and keep them, unable to make promises and keep them. And so it's like, okay, self-discipline is good in and of itself, in as much as it reflects God's character. And that's what I really want to be. And that was really helpful to me, just to like, no, this is a good thing. And
It's helpful because, it's helpful because our conception of God is just so vital to our engagement with God and our engagement with the world. And when you can conceive of God as a father, but not like the way we think of father, or if you can think of God as like judge, but not in even our best attempt at visualizing what a judge is, that doesn't even compare to, because God is judge in a way that we can't even conceive of judge, but he's still a judge.
Yeah.
And I think with the word organized, God is organized, but in a way that like is very different than what we think of when we think of organized. Because when we think of organization, I think there are people on staff in life that view, I need life to just stop so I can finally breathe. Like I just need I just need to get to December or summer so I can finally.
Yeah.
I don't see God acting that way. I don't see God creating that way. I see God resting, but not from a place of I've created disorder, but he's resting from a place of like I can really rest. And I feel that, this is just kind of a fun question to me. Is God organized? Like when Jesus said, "Go and make disciples of all nations," and baptizing them, and surely I'm with you. Like, did the disciples think, oh shoot, this is going to take a lot of organization? Like, this is going to take us really being organized.
Yeah.
Or did they think, God is with us? And, it's going to take some organization. Like, it's going to
Yeah.
take discipline. But I think people conceive of God in ways that maybe affect the way they engage with self-discipline, because they view it as bad, as a punishment.
Yeah.
Even like when I started playing guitar, people are like, man, I want to play guitar. When did you start? It was really like 7th, 8th grade. I had 2 summers of nothing to do, and I just played AC/DC guitar solos. But it was like discipline, but it was playful and it was fun, and it kind of got me a lot further than, maybe like grinding myself to like, I need to play guitar. And I feel like self-discipline is kind of, there's like a same flavor to it. Like it's producing something good because God is in it.
I think so much of God's organization is organic. I mean, you think about like our any sort of living creature is so organized, right? I mean, it's just, we can't even figure out the systems half the time, or any sort of, you go bigger than that and like you go find some sort of ecological zone, and it's like it's so organized. And humans like to tinker with things, and then you don't realize like, oh, it affects, all this stuff's interconnected. Our organization is often like, we kill things to organize. Like it's like, I'm gonna get a bug collection, I'm gonna get one of each, I'm gonna pin them, they're gonna be dead and they're gonna be in perfect order. Or like, I'm gonna figure out how the system works, so I'm gonna kill it and then take it apart into its component parts. And I think we do that sometimes. It's like, I want to dissect my ministry so that I can focus on only one thing at a time. But God, it's like you take the life out of it a lot of times. And I think that's what you're getting at with the Sermon on the Mount. It's this moving thing that has force, and you're sort of just trying to kind of like, all right, how do we keep our head above water? And a lot of that organization is responsive. But you do see, I mean, the examples of organization from Jesus and Paul and the other apostles are, certainly the Bible's not written to give us a sense of organization, personal organization. But I mean, I think about like Acts 6, where they see a problem. All right, these Greek-speaking widows are not being taken care of. The apostles are like, I don't think that's the most important thing for us to be doing, but I think it's important for it to be done. And so we're gonna pick some people, and they don't over spiritualize it. They're not like pray all night and then pick the people that the Holy Spirit picked. They're just like, pick some people that are full of the Spirit and are wise, and we'll put them in charge of it. But then the funny thing is, you never see those people doing that. But 2 of those 7 people show up doing all sorts of ministry that looks just like the apostles in the next few chapters. They're preaching and teaching. And so even that wasn't, they didn't take the spiritual life out of them and say, now all you do is this. It's like, no, go take care of this issue. But their ministry was still marching on. I don't know.
And it is, And even the people think like, if there's a problem in my personal ministry, there's a problem in my large, like if there's a problem, then something's wrong. But all the problem is showing you is like, it just needs attention. It just needs someone to add some life, some vibrancy to it. But the absence of problems isn't the health of a ministry, but often the engagement with problems, the engagement with situations is actually a very good sign of health. And I think there are, I don't know, when I did the Focus Apprenticeship in 2012, I had like a conception of what ministry was. It was one-on-ones with college students who were interested in Jesus. And it was doing what I'm told to do. And luckily, before we started fundraising, myself and Garrett did a weekend training with Chi Alpha on just support raising. We had to learn from people who've been doing it for decades. And one of the things that like one of the speakers shared was, if you're faithful with your system, God will be faithful with you. Like in his 30 years of fundraising, that's like the one correlate he's found, because they present so much information. But he said, if you're faithful with your system, if you choose a system and work it, like God will be faithful in either showing you it doesn't work, or he'll be faithful in like, providing opportunities. And so with support raising and with ministry over the last 15 years, God has gently expanded my aperture of what ministry is. But as that expansion happens, like organization needs to follow too, or systems to withstand the expansion. Otherwise, you just kind of get stuck. Like like there has to be a willingness to acknowledge that this job is not going to be what it is for you 3 years from now, 5 years from now. Life will continue to get complicated, and that's a good thing. Like that's a sign of health.
Well, our lives change, and I think that's reflective of why trying to find a verse to back everything up ultimately fails. Like our lives look very different than Jesus and Paul's, and or some medieval saint, or someone who lives 100 years from now. You know, it's just so there is a part of all of this organization stuff that's, you know, located in my time of my phase of life, where I live. I mean, we live in the West. We're very time driven, very driven on off the clock and to the minute. Paul and Jesus didn't have watches in the same way. You know, they didn't know the exact minute of things. Or I even think about people, you know, like Brady Bobbink not having a cell phone. I'm like, okay, he could probably get away with that as the senior member of a staff who had a secretary and some things like that. But would that be realistic for anyone on our staff? It's like, well, and I think sometimes it's to work on a team, we all take on certain systems and things like that because this is how we work together. We could make a big social compact to change that, but it would take all of us sort of agreeing to move a different direction. And so sometimes I think the things we're railing against, it's just, I want to do personal self-expression or even what's best for me, but that may hurt the people around me in different ways. And I don't know. I think it's
I remember a pastor saying, like, this was another college pastor, a different ministry, said, I tell all my students after 9 p.m., do not reach out to me. And I remember being like, 25 thinking, heck yeah, like I'm going to take that back with me. And then, we planted this Richland ministry, and I realized like a few weeks in, I'm like, please text me, call me. I'm so desperate for student connection. Just any time of day, please. Because contextually, it just didn't translate. In this conversation, you got to figure out what translates. This next question is kind of about that same question of translation. What are some ways to create physical and environmental reminders of tasks since we work from a non-office setting? So about context, about the context that we work in. The first thing that comes to mind is if you're on our pastoral team, if you're a pastor in our ministry, and if you currently do not have a task or project management tool, for you to begin using one immediately. Because this question is so important because our job switches context like at rapid speed. You're in your car, you're on campus, you're in the cafeteria, you're in your office, you're at a coffee shop, you're on a walk, and it's just imperative to know, where am I? What should I work on? What can I work on? And what's coming up after this meeting? Where are my energy levels? I think context is just so important for this job.
Well, and I definitely see things that hold people back from growing, both personally and in terms of role and responsibility in our pastoral staff, is either they're not doing work. They don't fill their time because they have no plan, and they don't even recognize that I don't have enough work to fill my time this week because I'm just responding. I'm never proacting in that sense. Or they're doing stuff, but they're not doing important stuff. They just kind of whatever it looks this and putting something in a system, writing it down, whatever, it allows me to begin to read through all those things and prioritize. Okay, these are the most important things. These are the things I got to get to. Or they do all of that, but they don't finish what they started.
Exactly, yeah.
And I think because things fall off their radar, they get distracted, squirrel, and I'm off doing this other thing, but I didn't finish that project. And those the higher up you move in the organization, the more what you do day to day affects everyone else. And so if I'm dropping balls and not finishing things, I joke with my team that I'm like, one of my jobs is to remember everyone's tasks. I'm constantly texting all because they don't finish what they start. They don't get projects. They say they're going to do something, and they're like, it's up here.
It's up here.
And I'm like, it's not up here. If I'm having to remind you constantly, it's not up here.
Yeah.
It's in my phone is where it is.
Yeah, having a to-do list, like any type of, and there's so many tools now. It's almost like God has just inundated us with so many good, healthy tools. If it's not out of your head in an app or in a notebook, or there was even a question of, is physical better? Is an app better?
Yeah.
If the goal of having a home base or like an app or a tool is to give you mental clarity to get it out of your head. So like my first few years on staff, I did my weekly report, but it was usually like, what day is it today? It's Wednesday. What's going on tomorrow? I think I'm meeting with Brandon. What do I need to do? I need to do my weekly report. Then I'm scrambling and I'm doing a weekly report. I'm getting it done, but I'm doing it from a place of reacting. And there was a moment a couple years on staff where I started setting a reminder 2 or 3 days before we met. And the reminder just said, think about your weekly report.
Yeah.
And the cool thing was I got to start my weekly report from a more rested mindset. I had the freedom to work on it for 10 minutes and put it away, or 20 minutes, or do it all a couple of days before. And I was giving future Sirac breathing room to go into our one-on-one with more space. So it could be as simple as reminders. Like Sloan and I, every 2 weeks, we have to set recycling out on a Tuesday. But I don't even, I value my mental energy so much. I don't want to have to get to Monday and go, is it recycling week? Is it, well, it was 2 weeks ago. I just have a reminder on a Monday night. It just says, put your recycling out, man. And I say thank you to that reminder. I check it off. And so it's about protecting your mental energy. Because I don't think we realize how we just squander that resource.
It's anxiety. I just see so many young people are so wrapped up in anxiety, and one of the anxieties is that we're going to drop a ball or forget something. I don't worry about anything. I put it in my to-do list, and I'm like, I will not forget it. I'm like, it would take, my to-do list is backed up to the cloud. I would have to have we'd have to have a nuclear war for me to forget these things. And that's what I don't understand. So many people drop balls and then they're stressed out and then they're mad and beating themselves up before staff meeting because they got to apologize and and I'm like, what are you doing to yourself? Just write it down.
I'm convinced God designed our bodies to be like these thermometers of like what we need to get done. So the rates of increased anxiety, increased trepidation to commit to anything is probably a physiological response to just our poor lifestyle choices of being well managed. Like when you can set healthy, fun reminders to even text a student, is there anything I can pray for you about? You'd be surprised at how much more fruitful, the potentiality of fruitfulness can actually grow.
Yeah, every habit I want to build, I just put in as a reminder. Wow. So when I wanted to grow in being a more encouraging person, I just put something every day, like a reminder that pops up every day, like encourage a student or encourage a leader. And I just would sit and think and text someone. But then after I did that for 2-3 months, I'm like, okay, usually I had already texted them and I'm just like clearing it because it became a habit. But it wasn't a stressful thing. And if I miss a day, I'm like, who cares? I'm like, before I was doing it hardly at all. Now I'm doing it 5-6 days a week. That's awesome. That's a win. It doesn't matter. No one's counting.
Reminders are fun to me because you begin to get to know yourself better, because things that you didn't think you needed, you realize you need. And the opposite, like a few weeks ago during one of our Monday meetings, you had mentioned that you have a reminder that says, I am not here to serve. I'm here to be. Oh, I am not here to be served. I am here to serve, right? And so you said it pops up on your phone. So I'm like, that's a cool reminder. Let me put it in mine. And I set it for like weekly on a Monday. It just pops up. The first month it would pop up, and it was like I read it, and I was like, I would read it out loud at my computer, and I'm like, why is this reminder here? Why is this reminder here? But something happened like month 2 when it popped up and I read it and I was like, oh, like I am not here to be served. I'm here to serve. There was something about like getting that seed implant, like making it your own. And I think there's a lot of people who are they're just afraid of like failing, or they're afraid of that feeling of they didn't do something well. You have to treat your reminders as just experiments. There's a lot of, the thing I realized was on staff, there are people who just intuitively know what to work on, what to say, what to ask, like where to be. They just intuitively, they intuit things so well. Even having Mandy as my supervisor, sometimes she'll ask me a question, how are things with Sloan? And then 45 minutes later, there's like a big insight that comes. And she just knows where to go. Like she knows it's not accusatory, it's not belittling. She just kind of asks and asks. And so the worst thing we can do is assume, I see these intuitive ministers. I'm intuitive. I can be intuitive with the way I do my one-on-ones, meaning I could just feel it out. But the truth is that, like, to me, intuition is just one small slice of the effectiveness slice. And there's also having really good lists, having really good notes, having a very active logic, like a very good mind where you're well-read, you're informed. But intuition is key. But I think we just so intuitively on our team, we see these people on our, like maybe at a director level, and we try to model them to the best of our ability by just seeing how intuitive they are. But it's all about not, to me, leaning heavy into my intuition and just hanging out there. Who knows what I'm going to be talking about? Like I have to have good reminders, good lists.
Well, and I think all of those people, no matter how talented you are in an area, you will at some point hit the limit of what just doing natural will get you.
And the funny thing is, Mandy will show me, she showed me her notes. And she showed me her like Sirac note and the kind of notes she'll make in there. And I realized, oh, she's not just all intuition. You know?
She's using that. She's figured out how to organize around to maximize. But yeah, I mean, I think, this question of like ways to create physical environmental reminders, I'm like, I have a few. I mean, the biggest thing is you've got to have a to-do list, and then you need a habit of checking your to-do list. This is why I'm like, don't have more than one to-do list. Don't have to-do lists in 5 different places. Don't try 3 different apps. You need one place where everything is. And then you need, and then I would set reminders or alarms or something in my phone to where, yes, I'm not going to forget to look at that. Ideally, I would set those reminders at times that I know I'm free. At the beginning of like, okay, right, 5 minutes after I walk out of my last one-on-one of the morning and I've got an hour before this, like that's when I want that reminder. So I'm like, okay, let me scan that. And then eventually maybe I won't need that reminder. It becomes, we develop habits, but you need a habit. But I think you can use sticky notes as well. Some people do that, though often they become background. I don't use like reminders in my phone very much because I just get too many notifications and they're background. I don't notice them. But that's why I use alarms a lot. Like an alarm makes a noise and it's the only thing on my phone that makes a noise because it's always on silent. And so I'm like, okay, I can set that at a specific time. But you got to do that. This is like physical environmental things. Sarah will laugh at this, but I use like piles of papers and stuff. Like if I have physical things I need to do, I kind of leave them sitting out. And the worst thing she can do is clean up after me, because then she'll take something and put it in a drawer. It'll be like 6 months later, I'll find that form I was supposed to turn in. Because I'm like, I never think about it again. Like the pile is a to-do list, and I see it there, and I can assess what to do. Now that doesn't mean just leave things everywhere. I just mean like, no, I have a place where it's like, I'm building a pile.
Same here. Physical stuff, like as I collect my receipts throughout the month, I have a place on my desk where all of my receipts for monthly reimbursements go. If we're buying snacks, food, drinks for any Richland events, I have a stack of where those receipts go, because I know I'm going to get those reimbursed in a different way. If it comes down to mail, I try to be good about just processing it right then and there. If it takes 2 minutes or less, just do it right then. In terms of physical environments, being a mood worker, for me, working in coffee shops, I have a mixed relationship with. There was, summer of 2017, 18, 19, I did a lot of fundraising in coffee shops because it was just kind of a season that I was in. It doesn't really work for me now, but fundraising, I have learned to, the more I go into it with a plan of what I want to do, then the context will naturally answer itself. So I meet at Whole Foods a lot with people, but depending on what we're talking about, how long it's going to take, we'll go for a walk, we'll meet in a different location. But I think with campus ministry, there may be days or weeks where like your system is just kind of thrown for a loop. We have a holiday coming up, we have a trip, we have camps. But the point of having a system isn't I'm going to get organized and have a system so I will never fall off my horse. Like the point is like you will get knocked off your horse, life will happen. You will have these sinking weekends of whatever. But when you like the system is to help you get back on the horse.
Yeah.
The system is to be like, hey, come on up here. We've been missing you. And so I also thought it was important to conceive of what a system can help you with. And I think many people don't stick with a system because they don't conceive of what the system is there for. It's similar to like you're in a college class and the professor has these lectures that are dynamic and amazing in person, and they assign homework, but the homework feels like it's from a different planet than the lectures were. So you're doing the homework going, how does this connect with the class? What is the purpose of this homework? Is this going to be on the test? And so you're doing the homework subconsciously. You're thinking, why am I doing this? Why am I doing this? And I think when it comes to systems and organization, a lot of people start, but then they have those moments of, why am I doing this? The point that I think we're doing it because when life does happen, it helps us get back. Helps us get back on the horse. And the system will inform, for example, if you're on a team and you're in charge of getting students to do investing in the vision, that can be a task that you show up to staff meeting and you go, how does Jimmy sound? Like, does Jimmy sound like a good student? Or if you have a good system, it could be something where you go, get students for investing in the vision. A reminder pops up. You show up to your large group meeting. You're talking to some students and you really resonate with something that a student shared. Would you be interested in doing investing in the vision? Let me get your name
share that. Yeah.
Let me get your name somewhere. So you show up to staff meeting already with like an abundance of what you've and you're helping it build. But I think so many of our tasks, we don't have a system, and it reflects in our urgency to reactively get things done.
Well, I think one of the challenges we face as a culture is that we constantly obsess over youth. And so it's just, I mean, you listen to the songs, it's like everything's about being 17. Everything's about, how wonderful it is to be young. And it's just a whole culture that's afraid of growing up. And I think there's this thing of like, we've so fantasized about being a teenager. And then one day you wake up and you're like, I'm not a teenager. I'm 25 years old and I have a career and I have a job and I'm still trying to figure out how to get back to living like I was 16. It's like, what if instead of trying to become a teenager, you tried to become like God, right? That's why the fruit of the Spirit is self-discipline, not acting like a child. And I think we have to recognize it's time to grow up. It's time to grow up. I find a lot of people just keep telling themselves they can't do it. That's not my personality. That's not my this. That's not my gift, whatever. And I'm like, you can. You're a grown up with the Holy Spirit whose fruit is self-discipline. You can keep a to-do list. You really can. If you're on our staff, you're not mentally challenged to a point where you can't keep a to-do list. But I do think you have to commit to it and not try and make it too fancy. I think a lot of times they're like, it's kind of like when you do the New Year's resolutions and it's like, okay, I've been a fat, lazy slob for, the last year, but now I'm only going to eat chicken breast ever again in my entire life. And I'm going to work out 5 times a day. Oh, and by the way, I'm going to have an hour quiet time in the morning and the evening. Oh, and by the way, it's like, too much.
Too much,
it's
man.
Don't make it too fancy. You got to have some grace for yourself in that. But it's just I do think it's like, yes, you can keep a to-do list.
It's like if you are forgetting your keys on the way to your car and you scramble to find your keys, like eventually you find it and you get to your car, you get to your destination. But if it's like a consistent thing, hanging your keys in the hallway will solve so many problems.
Mm-hmm.
But there's just the system of hanging your keys, right?
Yeah.
I feel like that metaphor can be applied to so many areas of our ministry because our minds are really just these creative, magnificent gifts that God has given us. And we don't need to be spending energy on finding our keys.
Yeah.
Like on
panic.
And panicking.
You panic when you do that. I don't want to panic.
Gosh.
I don't want any panic in any part of my day.
Yeah, you can you can show up to your one-on-ones and have those triggers for your mind to where you're like, oh, my keys are here. Of course they're here. To have reminders be it's like a good personal assistant. Like Johnny and Paul and Debbie are the focus admins, and they do a lot of work so that we can do work. Like they do work so we can do work. But they're just as important as we are. But they are they work so we can work. Who is your personal my devotional question for this time is, who is your personal Paul and Johnny and Debbie? When you sit down and the week is starting, do you have an inner admin who is like, this is what's going on this week. I got you, man. Hey, here's the DVP. But instead of DVP, here's the groceries that are expired in your pantry. Or, hey, your car, you don't have any gas. Yeah. You're about to run out. Do you have any sort of inner alarm clocks? This is really fun. This is really interesting.
So I wanted to add something, because earlier I said, don't do 2 to-do lists. Don't. And I do want to give one important exception to that, because my to-do list in my phone, I mean, a lot of days I have 40 to 60 items in it because I do everything in it. Like my prayer list, my personal prayer list is in there. They're marked a different color. Different exercises or stretches I want to do every day because I'm old and I don't want to hurt tomorrow. They're in there.
You're so pull left earlobe down, right earlobe.
Yes, each one. Those are 2 separate, the left and the right earlobe. But I really do have all these things. So I will sometimes, if I'm sitting down, for example, on Thursday afternoons, my guys' team at ETD, we do admin time. I've got 2 hours that I'm going to be at my computer, at my phone. Often I will either in paper or in a note in my phone. I'll read my longer to-do list, but I'll pick, this is the short to-do list I'm going to do for this 2 hours. And I'll write that in a separate place just because I don't want to keep getting distracted by this long.
Yeah.
It's no, I want to, and that might just be I know I'm going to do my blog. I'm going to do my blog and then I'm going to do this, and I can put them in order. I'm not going to do anything else until I do that top. Yeah. So I'll sometimes do a shorter one briefly. And I think that fades into this next question that we got asked, is about a paper versus a digital to-do system. What do you see are the benefits of either of these? Do you think it's realistic to use a paper planner, to-do list? What do you think?
A few years ago, I got into journaling, and I read a couple books for a guy. He's a professor at UT Austin. His name's Dr. James Pennebaker. And to sum up the books that I've read, basically journaling, handwriting content, it just sticks in your mind better than typing, than digital tools. And so writing down reflections, prayers, things you really want to remember, insights, whatever, handwriting it is just key. Even writing down difficult emotions that you feel. Writing will produce a clarity that digital tools won't. However, and I actually went down a path of using handwritten tools. There's a website called Monk Manual, monkmanual.com, and it's like a combination of spiritual discipline, spiritual formation, and to-do lists. And so their journals are built around planning your day, checking in with yourself, writing down your to-do list, mapping out kind of your day, week. And it was really helpful for me for the season that I was in. I used it for 3 or 4 months. I found that the speed of our work requires me to have a hybrid of digital and handwritten. So I use an app called Things 3, and it's a digital tool. It's on the Apple App Store. And I like it because you can quickly capture things through your laptop, through your phone, the name of someone you don't want to forget, an idea you want to bring to staff meeting, a question, even you notice something about a student in a meeting that you don't have the time to address right there, but you don't want to forget it. So Things has been really helpful for me. But I also find that handwriting is something that I don't want to let go of.
Yeah.
So I embrace it in my prayer life and even just a journaling practice. But to-do lists to me have been key for especially the type of work that we do, which contextually is all over the place.
I think both can work. They have pros and cons. My biggest reason for switching to digital to-do and a digital calendar is recurring stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember before I had an iPhone back in the, my first few years of ministry, it's like, all right, I set up an FOJ with this student. Now I've got to write it down 15 times, and then, he needs to move to a different time. I have to erase all 15 and rewrite it 15 more times, versus being able to just change it. And it's like this and following events, click, And so, and the same with to-do. I like the one I use, Todoist. Same thing, like I have it on my laptop, I have it on my phone. But one of the reasons I liked it was some to-do apps, in terms of recurring, it's like your choices is like daily, weekly, monthly. But I mean, Todoist will let me do days, weeks, months, years, and any number. I can be like, every 3 years I want this thing to pop up. Every 14 weeks I want this one to pop up. It's just, and so I use that a lot to set reminders. And then, it's not on me to remember when it pops up that next year, because sometimes I'll remind myself of something for winter camp next year.
Yeah, for sure.
And when it pops up, if I put it in as a recurring thing, I don't have to remember to enter it again. It will just pop up the next year again at that same, date. And so that's why I use that. But I agree with you. I mean, when I'm sitting and planning my one-on-ones and things like that, usually I'm going to sit with a journal, because I don't really want to work from a list very much when I'm sitting across from someone. And I remember things better and I process them better when I write them longhand. So I'll often sit down with a journal, write out the names of the guys I'm meeting with that week or the Corfa pairs, and think and pray and write notes and,
I've been really surprised with writing down. Now, this comes down to paying attention to what really resonates with you. Like paying attention to what resonates or what creates a dissonance. Like if something happens in ministry that you really, really, really don't like, do you have a system of like writing it down, capturing it, putting that somewhere? Because to me, the fact that you don't like it, that's worthy of your time and energy. Or if someone, a situation that you really like, that's worthy of your time and attention. I think and that takes like even like a conscious leap for maybe some of our younger staff, because maybe they have the mindset of I do what I'm told to do, I do what I'm asked, I do what I'm assigned, which is great. But taking ownership of that, when Peter's like, you have been given everything you need, now participate in the divine nature. To me, the to-do list, the digital tool, I mean, I have lists for people I meet with. Even I have a list of just students I want to meet with. And then within that list, I've got primary students, secondary students. This sounds terrible. Okay, I hope this only stays in the focus tab. I have a list called archived students, like students that were in my life, but they disappeared. But I don't want to forget them. So they're in archived. And then even within that list, I've got a list for professors/faculty that I want to stay connected with, because I meet them, I resonate with them, but I just don't have the time right now to
get a lot of time
to get a lot of time with them. I've got a list for groceries, good questions. Our job is meeting with people and asking questions. So when I hear a question that someone says, and I'm like, that's a good question. I have a good questions list. I have a creative ideas list. I have a potential sermons list. Just things that'd be a good idea. I have students that are about to graduate that you don't want to forget about. So these lists, sometimes I visit them once a year, or they pop up once a year, and I look at them, and they act as like triggers for my mind, similar to hanging keys next to your door of what you want to do with them. But I started small. I didn't like get my Things app. I've had my Things app since like 2018. I didn't download the app and add, a good questions list.
It's just slowly over time.
Evolved.
And then occasionally I'll cancel something like that. I'm like, that's not really serving.
I don't use this anymore.
And so delete it. But and someone had asked, like, what system do you have for writing reminders to look at the future and keep track of things. And I'm like, yeah, I mean, I do put things in my to-do list for over a year away sometimes.
Yeah.
And I have 100% forgot it by the time it pops up. And I've learned to like, you know, sometimes it'll pop up and I'm like, I don't know what this is. It's just too far. So I'll, you know, if it's in reference to an email, I'll put, you know, it's like, you know, do this or think about this in reference to, and then I'll put like the subject of that email and the date that it was on, so that I can go find what I was even talking about. Most of the time I'm not in that, but I have definitely, like, my staff has seen, like, sometimes I'll be like, I got this reminder. Anyone have any ideas what this is referring to?
The reminder says 3 Ninjas, 90s staff retreat movie night, 3 Ninjas.
You wouldn't know why I would think that. Well, and the other thing I'll do, especially with emails, is I'll schedule emails to myself. So like if there's an email that pops, I mean, you can snooze things obviously in Gmail, and that's really nice. And I can snooze it to a year away. Yep. It's like, oh, I don't need this email. I need to think about this the next time I'm planning fall camp. And when would I do that? Okay. And then it pops up. Or send it, you know, you can schedule an email to send at a time. I don't use that as much because I don't get the recurring, but with specific emails, it's a great way to like, I don't have to think about it.
Yeah, the funny thing about reminders is like last week, there was a student that I'm meeting with. In our large group meeting, he was sitting in the back by himself, you know, very despondent, kind of checked out. And I set a reminder, follow up with student, because he's sitting in the back. And I'm like, why am I setting a reminder for this? Like, I should just talk to him.
Yeah.
So I walked up to him like, is everything okay? And I'm like, you know, one time I was dying of dehydration in the desert, and I had a reminder pop up and it said drink water.
Yeah.
It really saved my life. I mean, reminders are cool, but don't let them keep you from, you know, talking to human beings. Yeah. But I think you get so in the habit of just, which maybe, I mean, if you have a ministry of 300 people, maybe you don't have the time to just kind of.
Yeah, sometimes you don't. Well, there was a question of like how to synthesize, organize relevant teaching materials and keeping track of things that you can utilize for sermons, point people to, teach in house. This one's a hard one. There's so many topics and so many materials. A lot of times I'm just asking around, and I'm pretty good at this. Like I think I can keep a mental list more naturally. Will you tell them to shut up a little bit in the next room?
Please stop doing it. Hey, will you set a reminder to tell them to stop
talking?
To
be quiet. But yeah, so I think if we can, you know, a lot of times I'm just asking around, like, hey, do we have good resources on X topic or things you've shared with students? And oftentimes I remember the resource when someone else is like, oh yeah, because I've used it more recently. Right. You could certainly keep a note in your phone or something of good resources. I'm surprised even as staff how often we forget the articles that we put on our website because we know like these are great resources. We have some great dating resources. But then I do often use timed reminders. Like for example, I knew that I was teaching 1 Timothy this fall for my leader team. Like I'd planned that months in advance. And so like I got an article that had some good stuff on 1 Timothy, and I put a to-do item of like, hey, revisit this article titled this, you know, and I put it at the beginning of the fall because I'm like, I don't know exactly when I'm gonna do that. And then I rescheduled it to closer, you know, so I actually used all of that this last week. So sometimes I'm like, yeah, if I know a sermon's coming at this time and I want to revisit this, again, I don't have to think about it. I don't stress about remembering it.
I think engaging with the fact, this is a good question because engaging with your tasks, your to-dos, your projects is one area, but engaging with your journey as a disciple is like engaging with your mind, engaging with content, concepts, ideas, and you want to be able to manage your knowledge in the same way not in the same way, but in a way that's effective, it's fruitful. I use an app, it's a note-taking app called Obsidian. I mentioned it during my winter retreat sermon. I like it, it's free, it's open source. there is a really deep rabbit hole you can go down customizing it. But I used it kind of halfway through seminary, and I like the note-taking app Obsidian because you can link notes to other notes. And it helps me just with the way that I think. But back to what I was saying earlier, there's just you honoring what really, really resonates with you. Like when you find a scripture, a psalm, like something that you're like, I don't want to forget, to really listen to that and then have a way that you can write that down somewhere. Because I've been surprised. Like a few weeks ago, I meet with people who often we talk about what they want, their desires, and I think many people have a complex relationship with their desires. I found a psalm. I don't even remember where I stumbled upon this psalm. It was Psalm chapter 20, verses 1 through 5. And there was a line in it where it says, "May he send you help from the sanctuary and grant you support from Zion. May he remember all your sacrifices and accept your burnt offerings. May he give you the desire of your heart and make all your plans succeed. May we shout for joy over your victory and lift up our banners in the name of our God." When I read that psalm, it was like that line of "May God give you the desires of your heart." I didn't know what the Spirit wanted me to do with this psalm other than just write it down. The fact that I put it somewhere in my scriptures that are personal to Sirach that I don't want to forget. There have been several opportunities where I've had the opportunity to share this psalm, where people can acknowledge the fact that God is not afraid of our desires. He wants us to engage with our desires. And this was just a personal, I haven't used it in a sermon. I haven't used it really outside of just kind of sporadic one-on-ones. So I use Obsidian, and I use it because it's open source and there's a lot of ways that you can tinker with it. Whether if it's relevant teaching materials, like I do body stewardship, and that class has evolved every year. So even throughout the year, if I find a body stewardship article or a podcast or something that I feel is really going to resonate with the class, to put it in kind of that body stewardship place. So in that way, I'm synthesizing and organizing teaching materials. Even because I'm sure a lot of this will come up whenever I am using it in sermons. There's a whole area of the internet called knowledge gardening. There's a whole YouTube rabbit hole people can go down of academics, people who write for Substack, just different thinkers who are sharing ways that they manage their knowledge. Because I think there is this movement of people realizing that like texting isn't fun anymore. Getting online isn't fun anymore. Social media isn't fun anymore. It's just chaos. Yeah. And there are people who are really trying to figure out, how can I synthesize and organize what I want to learn when I'm not a student and I don't have a syllabus. So if you're interested in that, there are just different resources for engaging.
This last question in this section, someone was wanting questions to ask ourselves to realize a system is not effective or it's not working, rather than just waiting till a ball is dropped. And I don't know. I had a few thoughts, and I'll let you respond. Number one, my principle is always organize enough to get the job done. So I'm looking and saying, is the job getting done? And I think, how do I assess that? Well, one, is my supervisor frustrated with me? Oof. Because if your supervisor is frustrated with you, that's a clue, like, you're not organized enough. If assuming that's the area they're frustrated with you. And you can always ask your supervisor or director what they think. Are my systems adequate? They'll be able to speak into that. I think looking back at your goals on your last eval, from your supervisor, was there anything in there that identified systems, organization, asking your students directly? Because I do think there are people, I've seen this over the years, that, they do great in what shows up at a staff level, but then often it will trickle out later that their students will talk about, like, they just kind of show up and they don't seem to have any plan. They don't maximize their times together. So asking students, are my coworkers expressing frustration? Because if I'm hearing that, like, lots of people are frustrated that I don't respond to emails, or that I don't, it's like, if I don't want that reputation in the organization. And then the last one, and we talked about this earlier, like, am I stressed and anxious? Because I think if I'm stressed and anxious, that to me is a big sign that my systems aren't good enough. I'm trying to keep too much of my world up here and just carry it at all the time. And that's a very heavy burden to bear. So those are some things that I would ask.
I like that. I like that because it invites each of us to ask, what is my relationship with structure? There are some areas of my life that I'm not familiar with. Like 2 years ago, I became a father, and I thought of myself as productive and effective, and very, I just thought myself a certain way. When my daughter showed up, when I added my daughter to my, I realized like things like my systems aren't working for me right now. It doesn't mean they're bad. They're just not working right now. It doesn't mean I'm bad. My system's bad. It's like, it's not a moral issue. It's just assessing what needs work. Like someone who goes to the gym for the first time probably needs more structure than someone who's very familiar with the gym. But that doesn't mean the familiar person with the gym doesn't have structure. It's just more like written on their heart. But that doesn't mean that they shouldn't assess whether if they should add more or take away more.
Well, and goals, if your goals change, your systems may change. If your role on staff moves from predominantly event planning to predominantly Corfa mentorship, your old systems may not work. I prepare differently for mentoring a pair of Corfas than I do for, planning Christmas party.
Exactly.
One goes in my to-do list, but mentoring Corfas doesn't go in my to-do list. I mean, maybe there's a reminder there of like, oh, ask about this thing that he told me about, or something. But for the most part, that's a small piece of the way I plan that.
For getting things consistently, if you feel overwhelmed when someone assigns you like a simple task, if there's that jolt of, then that might be a sign to assess your system. And the goal, it's I wrote down, let me read my notes because what did I say? I said, it's like buying a t-shirt and you go 6 months and realize that you forgot you bought that t-shirt. It's just waiting on your waiting in your closet to be used. It's not bad that you bought a t-shirt. It's bad that you mindlessly bought a t-shirt and it's not being worn. And what are those t-shirts for you in ministry? It's where you're either just wearing it thoughtlessly or you forgot that you took it on. Because everything that we do, it like gathers dust. The tasks we do, it's like body stewardship. It can become a dusty apprentice class. If I don't dust it off every now and then and just look at it again, what am I doing here? Your one-on-ones can become very dusty if you aren't just assessing, how are we doing? What are we doing? What did we talk about last week? And so everything gathers dust. And if things are very dusty in your ministry, then it's a sign that maybe your systems need a rejuvenative thing.
Sometimes change for the sake of change. I need to refresh this so I can be excited. I mean, my prayer list can gather dust. It's like I find myself just kind of going through the motions and not. It's like I got to reword this. I got to reorganize it. I got to think. These are still the things I want to pray about. But
holidays, family holidays can gather dust.
That's a great
hobbies can gather dust. They're just things that we do, and I think God is creative, God is organized, but like. When there isn't new, like when new water doesn't come into a habitat, it becomes a swamp. It becomes very arid, it becomes very swampy, and it just becomes gross. But the thing that keeps environments healthy is new water, new ideas. So even though I have a system, I'm not like, this is my system. It's very much like, this is where I've arrived. And this is what helps me right now. And I'm very much, sometimes I have things pop up when I'm meeting with someone and I go, oh, that's not really, it doesn't feel right today. And that's totally fine, but I have that system there waiting.
Well, and I don't think, we definitely don't mean like every time something feels old, blow it up and find a completely new system. But I think it's about looking at it and saying, is this still meeting my goals? How can I tweak it? What can I try differently? Because switching, like me to switch to a different to-do list, or for you, that would be a many hours long process. Like I've got years worth of buildup of how this works, but it's much easier for me to tweak and reorganize to make sure it's fresh and meeting my goals. Let's do this last section, this next section, and we can do it a little more quickly because I think we've covered a lot of this. But there's some things about scaling up your ministry as your ministry grows in complexity, and I think this really fits this next level group. One person asked, "What's the tension of keeping up with or being involved with alumni and their situations as our ministry gets bigger, our circle gets wider and wider every year?" And so I think that's a really tricky one. I mean, yes, I mean, I'm at the place I have thousands of people. And so I do think you have to get counsel and pray about all of this. Certainly your directors for your campus can tell you what can count in your ministry hours. You don't just have freedom to spend all your hours with alumni. Though I do think sometimes certain hours with alumni can count. Like we are pastors and we're not just like, I think part of being a good shepherd is that it's not like, well, as soon as you're not in college, I don't care about you anymore. But it has to be in balance in that. But I do think long-term in your own life and in your own heart, you've got to ask the Lord, who do you want me to pursue and look out for? Who am I taking responsibility for? Who am I releasing to him? And I think there's a difference between like, taking responsibility of like, okay, I'm going to call this guy every week and check up on it. And I got to still spend time with him and because he's not in a small group. And, and I've had guys like that. It's like, and I can encourage him, but it's like, at some point this has to end and you're at this other church. You've got to find people versus like, if one of them calls me in a crisis, it's always my responsibility. I'm not gonna be like, call someone from your own church. But that's different than just the ongoing keeping up. And I do find that when I pray, often God does give me freedom of like, I've got this. God loves all these people more than I do. And he's got more people than just me. I'm not the Messiah. And so I can release a lot of that. But then occasionally there are guys, maybe not forever, but for 2-3 years, that's like, they don't have another pastor. There's not anyone else there. And so I am going to check up on them. So I don't think it's all or none. I've learned over the years that a once a year phone call does a lot.
Oh yeah.
Most people, I mean, even if I just call them once a year, I have become a part of a very small percentage of the people they met in college.
For sure, yeah.
Most of them they're never going to speak to again, right? And so if I check in on them, I can do that, and it doesn't take a lot. And then just realizing that the transition to alumni to out of college, it is a painful transition. It's painful for every student because transitions are painful. They're stressful. And so I can't, just because an alum gets mad that we're not as close, doesn't mean I did something wrong. Or gets hurt or something. It's like, there's just a lot. I mean, people move from my campus to other campuses and they don't call me as much. And it's like, that can hurt, but it doesn't mean they did anything wrong. Or that I did anything wrong.
There's a tension that is kind of implicit within college ministry. And the tension doesn't go away. But you do come to terms with it. It's the tension of how to maintain relational wholeness in the midst of like we experience life changing at a very fast rate, and the students do along with us. But then there's this kind of, even the vocation talk we do at Winter Retreat, we talk about how once you graduate, you still got a huge chunk of your life left. But we don't experience that maybe as other students do. I saw a tweet that said, if I saw you every day in my 20s, you're my best friend. If I see you once per year in my 30s, I'd die for you. It was basically talking about how relationships change and how we still long for that connection, but even that connecting point is still just enough. Brady told a story, I think to Lawrence, about like they had a CCF reunion, like a 40-year reunion. Someone walked up to Brady and they were like, "Brady Bobbink, oh my gosh." And they looked at Brady and they were like, "Wait, you don't remember me, do you?" And Brady goes, "Sorry, man, I just don't." And the person goes, "You baptized me when I was, 21." And now they're like in their 40s. And Brady didn't apologize.
Yeah.
He didn't say, gosh, I really should have. Brady's like, listen, this is the context. And the student, then grown, much older, wasn't offended, wasn't bothered, but kind of they laughed about it. They hugged, they gave each other a big hug, and it is a reality of our work, and it takes a lot of
meeting so many people.
Contextualizing.
Someone asked, what kind of organization or systems are required to think ministry wide and not just in your circle, your campus, your personal initiatives? And it's a broad question.
Yeah.
I think it's a lot of the same systems. I think it's different questions. I think as you talk to other campuses, that's one of the things I'm often looking for with people that are moving up in the organization, up in the sense of taking on bigger roles. Ronnie would use that image of turkeys versus eagles. Like turkeys are like, they're on the ground, they see this much in front of them. An eagle's way up here and sees the whole picture. And and there's a whole range in between that. And it's like, what does it look like it's like, okay, I've gotten enough of a handle on this that I can go sit up in the tree branch and kind of take a look and see, okay, yeah, there's a need over here. There's this staff person over here is struggling. Maybe I could spend time with them and pray for them. And I don't have to be their supervisor. I could just get with them. Or I heard that this other campus is dealing with a problem similar to ours. Like, I'm going to go meet up with them and just chat, because maybe there's some cross-pollinating, like we could either learn something or we could share something.
I think so too. I have a list on my phone that I started earlier this year. It was people who have said we should hang out.
Yeah.
And our staff's at the size now where you may cross paths with someone who's like, dude, I don't know you that well. We should hang out. And but it's March, and coming June, July, you'll have more free time. And I had some really meaningful one-on-ones with people on our staff team that aren't on the Richland team. And it helped me think ministry-wide, even though if it's on more of a turkey level, but having those one-on-ones, you're face-to-face with them, but it kind of broadens your purview.
Yep.
So that's one way. You really are, like, I've realized that many director meetings, I could be off, this is me thinking out loud. I think director meetings we bring stuff to talk about that we noticed that are worthy of our time to talk about. And it really is that simple. Like, we've noticed this, we're thinking this, let's talk about it. And many of these things are ministry-wide, 3 years down the road, 5 years down the road. And we value the director's input enough to say, like, let's all collaborate, let's all clarify this. But it really isn't like, I say that because it's not astrophysics. It's not like complicated. It just requires us giving our time and energy to it. But it takes noticing what those are and having them. I think your supervisor relationship is a great space to test those things out. I've noticed this, or I've noticed this can be a key person, and your supervisor can mirror back to you. Yeah, no, let's see it from this angle.
Yeah.
But it's about primarily noticing what those things can potentially be.
Well, I think the rookie mistake often is thinking, okay, so I met with this student and they don't like the sermons. They don't feel, I'm like, then I come to staff meeting and on my campus, I'm like, students don't like the sermons. And that's why I, as a director, I'm like, how many students have said this? Who said it? And sometimes you boil it. Sometimes they're like, oh, I've talked to 10 different people from 10 different cores and I'm hearing the same pattern.
Sure.
Way more often than not, though, it's like, well, I talked to my one student that I'm closest to and we were kind of griping. It's like, well, that's not even students, plural. That's student. A student didn't like. And then at the director meeting level or in my one-on-ones with this, that's where I'm trying to think, like, is this a bigger problem, or is it just, maybe it is a campus problem, but maybe it's not a ministry-wide problem, or maybe it, so everything is like, am I looking for those patterns? Am I seeing, is there more than just what I've seen or experienced? And I do that a lot. I mean, that's a lot of what I'm doing, is just pinging people with things that I've heard to try to figure out how widespread is this? If someone's being gossiped about, I've got to be sort of wise as serpent, innocent as dove, but I am trying to figure out, like, how far has this gossip spread? Like, does anyone else know about this, or is it just these three people? And And there are ways to kind of figure that out. And sometimes like, oh, it's popping up at this other campus. Why? I don't know. Who's doing it there? So
Yeah, this is an interesting question because I convinced myself for a long time that I wasn't strategic. I mean, it was at the bottom of my strengths finder, like towards the bottom. And I convinced myself I wasn't strategic. I didn't see things from a high level. But it's not that I didn't, it's just that I noticed maybe different things from the ground level. And this is a fun question because anything can be scaled if you are collaborating with someone who maybe sees things from a different vantage point. A typical thing I'll hear is, I don't feel close to the students. Or, well, I think this. Well, why? Because I don't feel close to the students, or I don't feel close to the staff. Or why? Because I want to feel close to the staff. And I think it's our attempt to use our relationality to like think strategically, and closeness is like this barometer, which isn't useless. Maybe you do or don't feel close, but maybe that's because of the season you're in. Like during welcome week, you're just running and going. Or maybe there's some conflict that doesn't need to be talked about, but it's about noticing it and collaborating in a context that can like frame what you're talking about. I think there is an educational component to this question. Seminary was like this nonstop, oh, that's interesting, that's fascinating, that's really cool, I like that. But there was a moment where, and I think I fell into the trap of everything I learned, I was going to bring it to our staff team. I want to read this article. Why? Because it's interesting. I don't know, because I think it's interesting. And it only got me so far. One of my prayers became just, God, lead me to the right podcasts, the right books. Like, lead me to the things that are going to help me with my next step within this question of thinking about Richland, about focus from not whatever that next step for me is. And so I encourage you, if you're wondering what this question looks like as our ministry grows in complexity, to pray to God to lead you to the right resources. Because the most interesting class I took in seminary was a class on leadership. And basically the professor framed it by saying, leadership in the 21st century isn't going to look like, let's build a nice, tidy organization and then let's all lead. Or let's build a nice, clean framework of what it is and then here's the manual, let's all go lead. But he was saying leadership in the 21st century is going to look like, this is uncharted territory and we need a competent team of ministers and leaders who know it's uncharted, who are up for the adventure and who are up for like their own personal development and learning. And they're committed to like, I know what I learn and what I grow in is going to benefit the team, but we're all in this uncharted experience of, the modern 21st century world. And there isn't just one person on your team that's supposed to be the one learning and bringing everything, but everyone should cultivate that in their own relationship. This next question, as the number of 2-on-1s and 1-on-1s you have expands, how do you strike a balance between keeping ministry personal, but also not having 10 or more unique plans to create and execute every week? This is a fun question because it can be as the number of 2-on-1s and 1-on-1s expands, or as the number decreases and goes down to 0. The thing that I wrote was just our job requires constant reviewing. Like your weekly report, if it's done frantically, you could do it and not review how things are going. You can treat your weekly report as I'm just answering questions and get it out. But a good weekly report, I think, has an effect on reviewing how the week went, looking forward, where am I right now? What do the people in my life need? And so this is a question that has not gone away from me after 15 years. There's weeks where I have 12 1-on-1s, weeks where I have 12 cancellations. So I wrote consistent reviewing and then collaborating with your supervisor, people that you meet with.
Yeah, I think you need systems there, right? Like I do a lot more 2-on-1s right now than 1-on-1s with students in terms of consistent. But I don't do unique plans every week. So like for my 2-on-1s, I use scripture that I know. So I use 1 Corinthians with all my 2-on-1s unless they've done it before, in which case I either do First and Second Timothy, or occasionally I'll try to do Romans, though I'm not very qualified. But I use scripture that I know, and that way it's like what I know is that every week we're going to be in the scripture, and I know it well enough, just that I don't have to prep it every single time. I will prep, I will think about it, but it's not a full. It's like, okay, I'm looking ahead. Like, where am I at in the book with these people? Okay, am I ready for that? Is there anything I want to bring? And I know it because I've used it, not just because I don't know, wrote a plan one time. It's like I use it over and over again. And then I have sort of a structure. So every time, every 2-on-1 and most 1-on-1s, I always ask, what do you want to talk about today? And I do that at the beginning to try to see, is there something that's on their heart? And I can prioritize that. And then I have a list of what I need to cover with everyone every week. So if it's time to cover quassal, qualities of a spiritual leader, like that's in my list. So that structures my 2-on-1s. It's like, okay, I'm going to ask, what do you want to talk about today? I'm going to cover quassal, and I'm going to use the rest of the time to study the scripture. And I'm like, is it a home run every week? No, but it's solid every week.
Solid, yeah.
And over the course of the year, they're going to learn a book of the Bible, and we're going to talk about a ton of different topics as we go through that book of the Bible, and they're going to bring things up. And then I can add in some stuff, but I'm not really writing a plan for every group.
Yeah.
And then, I think the number of unique things is few. Sometimes I'm like, oh, this group, I know they're struggling. They need help with rebuilding their core because they lost a lot of members, or they, And so, yeah, I can do something, but that's a piece of that. It's not this whole plan. But even if I'm covering the same conversation, the same passage, the same question, it's like every conversation is going to be unique because they're all in different places. And the same where on the 1-on-1 side, I'm like, that's why I'm like, use FOJ. Stop trying to write a new Bible study every time. Study this. You can have a lot of different conversations from the same lesson, but you don't have to prep 50 different preps. And when people get done with FOJ, I think the rookie mistake is like, now I'm reading a different book with every person. And I'm like, no, I'm not going to read a new book with every single person that wants to meet 1-on-1 with me. I'm like, I might, if there's a book I really want to read and discuss it with every 1-on-1 that I'm doing. Or they might read a book that I've already read, and I feel like I can have a conversation with you about, so you want to be like Christ? You read a chapter and come, I've read it before. I've read it 3 times. I'm not going to read it this week, but I'll bring my book, and that way if they have a question about something. So you just have to be realistic. Like, I can't spend an hour prepping for every one of these things. I wouldn't get much done. So I don't know. That's kind of some of my systems.
Yeah, that's helpful. I mean, Richland right now doesn't currently have, the peer team, even the traditional Corfa model, but the way that I prepare for my 1-on-1s are a lot of note taking at the end of the 1-on-1 the week before. Because some of the things that students share when they're in the company of a pastor is very insightful. And I think there's the context of a 1-on-1 that they have is like a space where they're not on their phones, where they're present, where they're being asked good questions. And sometimes the students share these things that are worthy of being brought up again. So I'll take notes at the end of a 1-on-1 of just what stood out, what they say. The next week, I'll just kind of mention it, bring it up. FOJ, to me, just like you said, it provides us, like, there's something about setting a goal of, we're going to talk about life in the body, and we're also going to relationally connect, but we're going to talk about this as like our anchor and to let the conversation unfold. I think FOJ, it just anchors conversations in ways that I think is almost like a training tool for young people to stay focused. In addition to engage with the text. So FOJ is big in my 1-on-1s, and also just capturing what was shared that I think are worthy of being brought up the week after. Focus. One of my donors came to Winter Retreat a few years back, and I was like, how'd you like it? And he said, you could tell whoever runs this thing, you could just tell, like, they have the mind of, like, they view retreats in like systems. Like, at any moment in the retreat, we know what's going on. We know what my options are. And I was like, and what'd that do for you? And he said, I have freedom to choose what I want to do. I know what I'm choosing, and I'm choosing it with like so he was saying some retreats he goes to, the session's over, and there's this collective like, what are we doing now? Are we talking? Are we hanging out? What's going on? Where there's like everyone goes to their room until we go back to the session, and there's this angst of what if we don't want to go to our room? He complemented Focus's organizational structure, because we really are a ministry that provide a lot of structure. Even going to the website, having audio guides, having video guides, having there's a lot of structure, not to bind you in, but to help you choose well. I think that's what ministry is. It's like it's knowing what you're choosing and feeling confident about what you're choosing, even if what you're choosing is to put FOJ away this week and to talk about something else. And I loved that compliment that one of my supporters gave, because it's something when you're in it for so long, you just see all you know is it. All you know is what we do. But
well, and I think some of that, it's to me that kind of structure. It's like a trellis for ivy to grow on or something. It's kind of like, it's not, we don't control the growth, but it's like, hey, here's something that will hold you up and get you where you're, you can grow whichever, but but it's going to get you, you're going to be moving up, and you're not going to be circling back on yourself and that kind of, so it's like, you're trying to provide something that's like, I could climb this, but I'm not bound to it in the same way.
This next question.
Yeah, last one.
It says, how do you keep up with a growing ministry with only 3 pastors and multiple
camps? No, let's not do that one. I don't like that one.
The one after that one.
Yeah, that one.
How many guys do you keep notes or tabs on? How do you determine they are someone you should be keeping track of? And what kind of things do you note?
So we have been talking a lot about this. I think a lot of this is going to depend on your memory. And I've found my memory has gotten worse, worse maybe not the right thing. I just think I'm trying to keep track of way more things than I used to. And so, the dullest pencil is sharper than the sharpest mind when it comes to remembering things. So, I've even been thinking, you were talking about taking notes at the end of some of these one-on-ones. Like, I'm going into these, what we do at UTD, we call our EPIC initiative in the fall, every person in core, where a staff person tries to meet with every single person that's attending core. And it's a lot of work, and it's a lot of one-on-ones with freshmen and sophomores. And I was reflecting even earlier today. I was like, last year, I have relationships with those guys I met with, but I didn't take notes, and I don't. I know. I was really sitting. I was like, is it this guy or this guy whose dad died or mom died? Wow. And I was like, ooh, and I'm like, I don't remember. And who would I ask? Because it feels really big. Like, did you tell me your mom died?
Oh, yes.
So I think some of those key things, writing them down at the end is big. But I do have to be able to ask people to refresh my memory on things sometimes. Like, it's unrealistic for me to remember everything a student ever tells me. Kind of like your Brady story. Like, I can't do that. And I can't apologize for not having a computer brain. Like, I have the brain God gave me. But I do write down one-word goals for people when I have them. And I have a lot of notes that are just titled with a person's name.
Yeah.
I can jot some things down when we're going. So it's somewhere I can go back and grab things that I want to ask about again. So that's kind of how I think about it.
Yeah, I think this would be cool if we had like a screen share of like I could share, because sometimes you just need a little bit of inspiration. But right now in my app, I have I have like a note called pursue and connect with these people. And like I mentioned earlier, because right now going into the year, Joey moved to UTD. I'm the only male minister on our Richland team. And so going into the year, I just knew I had to keep track of the dudes kind of coming in, the different males coming into our ministry. So in that section, I've got an area called consistent guys, inconsistent, and I don't really look at that one anymore. I used that for the first couple weeks to figure out who are going to be the consistent guys. And then within that note, I have, primary, secondary, but I don't look at this all. This was a tool for me, like those first few weeks of September, because there were so many people coming in, and I wanted to make sure that I not only remembered their name and like an identifying factor, but what category they kind of fit in. So it really wasn't about the number of guys. Even if it was 50 guys, I was going to try my best to categorically make them be somewhere, but also revisit that. So even, because I know some people on our staff have like only 5 people they're keeping track of, or some are 15, 20, 25. And the question, how do you determine they are someone you should be keeping track of? My posture right now is if they show up to any of our stuff, they're worth being kept track of. But I don't want to invest a lot of mental energy in that keeping track process, because I want to be present at the events I'm in. I'm not like 47 guys and what's your name? It's a very like fluid process. And the things that I note under the guys are, if they mention something to me, like it could be as simple as, dude, I am so glad that I found focus. To me, like, I want to write that next to their name, so the next time I look at that name, I remember that they're the one who said they're so glad. Yeah. There was a student this year, I felt like I was in like a Disney movie. We had food, he came to one of our events, and I said, man, how do you like Focus so far? And he goes, free food, I'm making friends. What else could I ask for? And I'm like, thank you, Lord.
Yeah.
I wrote that next to his name. He's been one of our consistent guys. So this takes paying attention to what really resonates with you, or even students that show up and maybe they cause disruptions, or maybe they're a little distracting. They have behaviors that are I write that down too, for me to keep track of. But it's important to begin cultivating a system. And even though I have this system, I'm very willing to renew it. The next year I may have a brand new system.
And I think there's also, there's guys, back to our alumni question, there's, people that move off other directions, they transfer to a different school, they were in my peer team last year, but now they're meeting with someone else. I've just found one of the things, this question of how do you determine you should keep track of them, I'm like, well, texting's kind of an amazing thing, because if someone comes to mind, it really takes me a few seconds to say like, hey bud, thinking about you, you doing good? And then oftentimes 9 times out of 10 they're like, yeah, doing good, how are you? And it's kind of like this 2 or 3 text thing, but every once in a while they're like, why do you ask? Did God tell you to check on me? I'm like, we should get some time, man. It's like, I'm like, okay, something's going on here. So it's just low cost to kind of text someone. Calling can be a bigger deal. The voice memo thing
is huge.
Is huge now, to be able to like hear my voice, but without the like risk of an hour-long phone call catching up with someone. But even guys just that are in the ministry, hey man, thinking about you, like often they'll tell me if I need to keep track in some bigger way or look into something, because I can tell. They're not, oh man, yeah, it's been really rough, or I'm struggling, or, that kind of stuff. I'm like, okay, I can prioritize that. And if they're good, then I can move on.
Have you used Loom?
I don't think so.
Loom, it's a video, it's a screen share video recording tool that I'm just seeing it around more. You can record, if someone sends you an email, instead of replying back, you can record yourself replying to their email, kind of writing your response, explaining your response. It just makes it more interactive and engaging. I've seen people use it. It was cheesy at first, had a few professors use it, but now I'm seeing it become more popular. You can, cool. But voice memos have been amazing too.
Well, let's stop here. We got about halfway through these. We'll do another one of these with these other questions eventually. But this has been a great conversation. I appreciate you, Srek, and appreciate Rhett being our AV man and our tell the rest of the staff to shut up man.
Thanks,
man. And, that's great. Some of you watching this had to shut up because you probably can hear yourself in the background. Anyway, we love you guys and hope this is helpful.
Yeah. So. Well, Brandon, let's do it. 1, 2, 3. Thanks for watching this.